It's so interesting, Mass. Let me just first see if you don't mind. Or how many of you are Kriya bonds right now? Could you just raise your hand so I can see you? Good, a nice number. And how many of you are working towards Kriya right now or on that path? Wonderful, good. I love those two hands. That is great enthusiasm, a wonderful spiritual quality. Good for you. Puneet, wonderful. Yeah. Remember Yogananda, who I'll call master moving forward, because it's been such a habit now for all of these decades, said thoughts are universally, not individually rooted. And that's such a hard concept for the mind to get. But as we live our lives, ever more and more of our lives on this path and related to our spiritual lives, we have more and more experiences of that. And then when we have the experience of it, we start knowing it. This is why that great quote that Yogananda put on the frontispiece of the Autobiography of a Yogi, he said, "Lest ye see signs and wonders, you will not believe." So he said right away, if I don't show you some miracles, you're never going to believe this, because this is so far outside of the realm of Western minds, what he came to show us. And for most of us, that was true. And quite frankly, just because I've been sharing these teachings for so many years now, and not just here, but in India, and we have so many Indians in our congregation in Palo Alto, which is Silicon Valley. I assume many of you have heard of that. Great Indian population. So I'm with Indians a lot. So I could say Western mind, but it's just as true of a lot of the Indian minds. They grew up on some of these teachings, almost like baby food. But many of them say we never really got it till we came here. Anyway, back to thoughts are universally, not individually rooted. I believe that this chant that Nara and Kalamali just had us sing along with came from the celebration of Lahiri Mahashai's Mahasamadhi the other night. Is that true or no? Did you get it from the internet from that?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might have been the Krishna celebration. They did them both of it. Yeah.
I see. They did them both. Okay. Just because I watched that and I loved that. And I was going to speak about that today, which is what makes it so interesting that the chant was chosen. Now, she might wear the same clothes many times over, but she was wearing that blue. That was Nayaswami Devi, who was chanting. Great, great musician. She's so tuned into these chants. And I'm going to assume it was from that night. And I wanted to speak to you just a little bit. It's not much time to speak for 20 minutes or so, but enough to whet our appetite. Let's say I just came back from a 3-week pilgrimage to India, which was, I came back a couple of weeks ago, completely life-changing for me. And I don't want to talk about that right now, though I could, because it was life-changing and thrilling, just transformational. But part of what I did, and I traveled alone for those 3 weeks, but I stopped in some of our centers and met friends, was that I went to Varanasi for the first time. And you may know or remember from the autobiography, I assume everyone here has read the autobiography or is reading it or will read it, that Lahiri Mahashai, who is Yogananda's guru, lived and served mostly from Varanasi or Benares, same city. And so his home is there, and also an ashram, a meditation place, really. No, but not very few people live there, just the priest and a couple of other people. But there is a meditation temple there that was dedicated to him. But his whole vibration is there. You really feel it. And it put me And then we just came out of this time where it was his birthday and his Mahasamadhi, 10 days apart. Very auspicious and powerful time. Yogananda has told us that during, in and around the time of any, not a saint, certainly, but these are avatars that we're talking about, during the time of their birthdays or when they left their bodies, that they're particularly good times for us to tune into them. Hence this big celebration up at Ananda Village the night of his Mahasamadhi. So I was thinking of all of this, and I just came back from Varanasi, and I meditated sitting on a little bench right across from his house in this tiny little alley. I mean, I was not much further away from it than I am from my computer right now. And then in that ashram several times. So feeling very tuned into him and connected to him, and then came home to these celebrations. So I reread the chapter in Autobiography of a Yogi, which I hope you've all read, where he is called, I will say, up into the Himalaya, into the mountains, really by Babaji, but he doesn't know that yet. He thinks he's just being transferred to work. But he goes out for a walk one day. I mean, literally goes out for a walk, climbing the mountains. And he meets Babaji. And it's a beautiful story. And I assume many of you have read it. And Babaji, to make sure that all of his desires have been taken care of so he can live beyond desire. One of the great songs that we always play in and around Kriya retreats or initiations, if we can, is a song that Sri Yukteswar used to sing all the time called Desire, My Great Enemy. And it's a wonderful song. We won't have time to play it today, but you can find it on YouTube. You just put that in, Desire, My Great Enemy, and you'll find a lot of recordings. And it speaks about the essence of Kriya Yoga, really. Kriya Yoga is just a technique for those of you who don't have Kriya yet. And I say just, it really is simply a technique that's helping us take control of energy, that we are an energy that lives in our spine, to take control of it so that we can help it rise up through our astral spine, clearing out all of those blocks. They're called vrittis, right? Whirlpools of energy pulling us in really delusion out into the world with needs, with desires, with likes, with dislikes, with judgment, with greed. Goes on and on and on. That's why the Kauravas in the Bhagavad Gita, it says the Kauravas, who represent all of what I'm just trying to say to you, that's always pulling us away from our true nature, who we really are. And why are we all here today? Everybody who's here today, it's a deep interest in finding greater peace, greater ease, greater joy, tuning into pure love. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Whatever you call it or however you're thinking of it, it is what's drawn us together. And that's what Kriya Yoga helps us do. But there's huge numbers of forces pulling us out into these egoic desires, into this state of what we call duality. And in the Gita, they say the Kaurava brothers, who represent all of these, were too numerous to count. That's what it says. So imagine, the odds are really against us. I've told Master many times, this is not fair. Furthermore, we come in as human beings, and our minds, and this has been scientifically proven, our minds are much more attracted to the negative. It's just the way it is. The odds are so against us. So boy, we really have to want this. We really have to be ready to go to battle. Hence, a chapter in the Raja Yoga book called Life is a Battlefield. somebody just changed that chapter about 2 years ago, which I'm very upset about. They now call it duality. I like the title, Life is a Battlefield, better, because it says what it is. We have to be ready. We have to have greater desire to feel all of that beautiful divine energy, all of that which is already within us, but Maya, delusion, such a strong pull on us, taking us out. We have to be ready to go to battle. It's what it is. And we go to battle by learning to meditate. That's how we do it. We go to battle by coming to satsangs like this. We go to battle by chanting or listening to Swami and Master's chants that are spiritualized. So if we just put Swamiji chanting Om, which again you can get from Crystal Clarity or on YouTube, and it's playing in my home every minute of every day in the background. Why? Because without my even having to make an effort, Swamiji chanting Om, the sound of all creation, the sound of the manifestation of God Himself is playing constantly. And without my knowing it, it's bringing me in and in and in. Effortless. Master said, walking on the spiritual path is difficult at first and then effortlessly liberating. Isn't that a beautiful promise? Such a beautiful promise. And they've given us Kriya Yoga as the way to do it. But I don't want you to think I'm too lost. I'm not lost. So I came home and I read this chapter of Lahiri Mahashai and his experience in the Himalaya with Babaji. And I saw it in a different way. Now, I've read that chapter more times than I can tell you, and that is the truth. But you know, every time I read it, I have this experience. I say to myself, was that always in the chapter? Because I didn't see it before. I didn't see it until right this moment when I was meant to see it. That's how we all are. We're expanding, Then we can see more, take more in. And what I saw in the chapter, which of course, this part of it I have heard, I knew before. When Babaji gave him Kriya and told him that his job now, why he was born, was to bring Kriya Yoga back, not only to the East, but that he would send him a devotee, ultimately, who could get Kriya Yoga to the West. The West means US, the West means Australia. The West, I mean, I hate to say it, but bring Kriya Yoga back even to millions of Indians. And what he told Lahiri, you can only give it to people who are ready to dedicate their entire life to this spiritual path. And Lahiri said to him, so many people whose hearts are longing to know God. This is at least me. I don't want to make a presumption. Maybe it's some of you too, who aren't yet perfectly attuned. All of those souls, we're denying them the best technique there is to find God. And then Babaji said to him, through you, God has spoken. Let it be so. Now, the reason that happened with Lahiri is because Lahiri was born into an India where the caste system was holding down so many people. That was not the intent of the caste system. The caste system actually had a much higher spiritual intent. That's for another talk. But it had been humanized. And so at the human level, people were using it to keep other people in their places. And it was hurting people now spiritually. So Lahiri said, I will give Kriya to anybody who has the great desire to know God. Anybody. He didn't care what caste they were. He didn't care what religion they were. He gave it to Muslims, he gave it to Christians, he gave it to Jewish people. I say that because I was born and raised Jewish, and I was a deep practicing Jew before I found this path. And it was as far from what we were doing as anything could be. But Lahiri said, this is for everybody. And he changed the world. His willingness, his intention, his great spiritual knowledge changed the world. And this great technique was offered to all of us. Ananda, who is one of the highest souls that Yogananda met and describes to us in the autobiography, because he said most of those people that he talked about were not realized beings. They, of course, were very high saints, but they weren't realized. But Ananda was one of the highest. This is what he said about Kriya. He said, Kriya Yoga is the most effective device of salvation through self-effort. Very important line in there. Through self-effort, ever to be evolved in man's search for the infinite. Again, what a promise, because all of us have been called somehow. Every person who's here today, and many who aren't, of course, something has touched us that said either get Kriya, get on the way to Kriya, or at least let me know more. Let me see. What is it? I remember the first time I ever went to Ananda, and that was back in 1980. But I looked at the people who were sitting in the front rows, and I had this experience. What is it that they have? Whatever those people have, I want that. Such joy, such peace. I saw it in them. And they were just human beings working through life like I was. I want that. And I went after it. And I really did. I just dove in. I was, I think, the 106th person that Swamiji ever gave Kriya to. And I've been practicing ever since. And it changes our lives. It gives us this great gift, many, many gifts, but this greatest of gifts, exactly why Master came, to show us that we can, each of us, have a direct experience of the divine within. Now, that is different than what I was taught being raised Jewish. That is different than what people are taught being raised Christian to a large degree. And even most people growing up in India, nobody says to them explicitly, the reason these teachings, the Mahabharata, the Gita, the Upanishads, matter so much is because they're all saying the same thing to us. And that is, all that you want, everything that you want exists within you. I wish I had this story in front of me that I found this morning reading something. I don't know where. And I don't, but it was a story about a animated feature that was all dogs. So it was dogs talking to dogs. But this is going to lose something because I don't have the punchline. But the punchline is basically that which you've been chasing your whole life is a part of you, meaning their tails, of course, in case none of you have ever seen a dog chasing their tail. I should get a video of my little puppy chasing his tail. It's precious. That which you have been chasing your whole life. Beautiful story that Master tells about the musk deers in India. I think it's a true story. He says they're so enthralled with the fragrance of musk that they run around hysterically. Many of them get, I'm just turning off the timer that I set for myself because you don't know this about me yet, but I could talk for a very long time today. These teachings are so thrilling, honestly. But he tells the story of a musk deer that just gets so passionate and hysterical that he literally jumps off of a cliff looking for that fragrance that was always in this little pouch within. That's where musk is from, in these very particular musk deers. And yet they don't know that. The dog doesn't know that its tail's a part of him already. But Master came to tell us that which you so desperately want, that's which will lift you up out of all of these pains, all of the ways we go, oh my God, I'm so happy. Now I'm so miserable. Oh, he or she is perfect. How did I ever think I would love them? I need to have that house. This house is too small. It's not the right. Just goes on and on. Life is perfect, but you took my partner by cancer. I had everything I wanted, and a flood came and took my home. Light and dark, right and wrong, good and bad. Even those people who think that they're living in a perfect state, most people aren't even silly enough to think that, but some are. No, the only thing that we have forever is true love, is perfect truth, is absolute wisdom. It's already ours, and it's within us already, each of us. Master Swamiji said, we go to school to learn, we practice yoga to unlearn that which we've been taught. And the best way to do this, as Ananda said so beautifully, the most effective way ever given to mankind through self-effort is Kriya Yoga. It's a simple meditation technique. It's just the next technique. Like all the techniques we learn on our way to Kriya, Hangsa, energization, more, Mahamudra, wherever you are, whatever you know, whatever you don't know, sitting up straight, straight spine, palms up, open your heart, keep your eyes uplifted slightly. Doesn't matter where you are in your search, your desire to learn to meditate. They're all just techniques. Master Swamiji said once, if ever you're meditating and you have an experience of the divine, even if you're practicing Kriya, stop right then. They're techniques, they're not the goal. The goal is the realization of the divine within. So this is a teaser in a way, but let's stop here again for those of you who joined after. I really hope that we get to have some time together in February. We'll have so much more time to talk about these teachings, to get closer to Kriya or wherever we are on the path. We'll also have time to hike, walk together, play together. You'll get to show me your beautiful country. This is what I want. So come if it's at all possible, and we will all come together to make a very special time. So let me ask now for questions. I think the best way for you to ask questions, Kalamali and Nara told me you want them to put them in the chat. Please don't be shy about this. Whatever, any question that you've had, as I said before, I do every 3 months a Q&A through a Zoom link that people attend from all over the world. There's usually at least 80 or 90 people. And they're so popular because you ask a question and then we get to talk about the teachings. Unfortunately, in these Zoom meetings, mostly I get to talk about the teachings, which would be different if we were in person. But anyway, let's just do it. So whoever has a question, please go ahead and type them in.
Thanks, Shanti. That was beautiful. And
we could feel everything of your wisdom in India and going deeper with this story of Lahiri and bringing that magnetism. And thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a question from Tracy. So Tracy's from Victoria, down south, in a little town called Ballarat. But her question was earlier on in the piece. She talked about that universal thought. And she said, do you mean thoughts are floating around in the ether and we pick them up or we don't? Like, is it a choice that we use to pick them up and use them? And if so, is it our energy and magnetism that attracts that of a certain thought?
And that's a very good question. And I think either you or Nara really already have the answer. You know, thoughts are energy. Everything's energy. There's nothing exists. This is, again, these are very hard concepts for the mind to get, but they're true. And we know they're true. I mean, the first physical law of the universe says energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can always be transformed. We probably all learned that in high school, at least. Energy cannot be created, means you can't make more energy than already exists, and you can't destroy it, but it can be transformed. We all know that when we look at how we make fire. We all know that when we look at H2O, which can be steam, which can be water, which can be ice. That's a transformation of energy, but it's always energy, and it's always two atoms of hydrogen and one of oxygen. So we use these concepts, but we don't always think about them like that. Everything is energy, energy vibrating at different frequencies. So to the mind, which exists on the physical plane, there's delusion involved. We actually think that we are separate from the chairs that we're all right now sitting on. But what's fascinating is that it's exactly the same energy. It's just vibrating at a different frequency than we are. But as we grow spiritually, and as we tune in more at an energetic level than at a physical level, we begin to realize, not think, but realize that it's all the same energy. And when that happens, this is how the great masters can change their form. They can materialize things because it's the same energy. They're just tuned into it, and we're not. So that's a whole talk, and I don't want to give it, but the answer to the question is that thoughts are energy. Energy is always out there, always. But as we attune ourselves to the master, the more that we use the guru's presence, which is already there, and we literally change our own vibration, we tune in differently. Now, we all know energy is what creates magnetism. We've seen that in the physical world too. So depending on where and how, where our energy is, how we're using it, we have more or less magnetism, and the magnetism can be dark or it can be light. It can be pulling us out, or it can be helping us draw ourselves in. And depending on where that magnetism is, we tune into different thoughts. So again, that's a long talk. It's a fun talk, but I think you can feel it probably already, that it really depends on where we are. And that's why suddenly we can just know things. We just know them. We were talking right before this because my partner just had an emergency surgery yesterday. And 5 days ago, I started. Now, I happen to be a physician, and I've practiced for years and years, and I had a huge practice in the United States. You didn't get to hear any of my medical stories today, but if you will, I do a lot of teaching through those stories because Master brought me into medicine. Master stayed with me in medicine. So there's all these wonderful, wonderful miracles that have happened because he's there, not because of me, but because of him. But they're fun, and they've saved a lot of people's lives, is the truth. And I knew instantly what was wrong with my husband. Now, I know the medicine of it, but I also just tuned in. It took me 3 days to convince him to see a doctor. I nearly killed him in the process. And then it took me 2 more days to convince the other doctors. And finally, yesterday, when everybody got on the same page and we got him in for the right study, and he was immediately sent up to the operating room to treat what I knew he had 5 days earlier. And Nara and I were talking about how when you're in medicine for a while, when you tune in that way, all again, with God's grace, truthfully, all with, it's not about how smart we are, not at all. I often tell people, honestly, I'm not that smart. I'm not enamored with the intellect. That's not how I am. I love heart. That's who I am. Yet, Master picked me up. He put me at Stanford Medical School. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but one of the finest medical schools in the world. I could never have belonged there, except he just put me there. And I had fun, and it's been wonderful. And he stayed with me, and he helped me use my intuition. So wherever we are, we tune in how we can into what we're made to tune into. Then the more we meditate, the more likely that is to happen, because intuition is really simply our connection to the divine. That's what intuition is. So, yeah, thank you for asking that.
That was a great answer to also a great question. And we have a few coming in. So we were just sharing with everyone, these questions are great. So we'll get through as many as we can and do part 2, however we need to. So this one's from Puneet, and he's outside of Sydney proper, here in New South Wales. He says, thanks for being with us, Shanti. If you can share prayer or affirmation to master to be well disciplined before taking Kriya.
Share a prayer or affirmation before taking Kriya.
Yeah, to help one get closer to that moment.
You know what? Why I'm spending time with this Puneet is that it's, to some degree, it's individual. That's what's stopping me for a moment. To some degree, what each soul needs to find their way there would be different. But I could say to you that rather than affirmation, it's funny, I'm sorry, I'm just blocking on a word that I know so well. When somebody's going to have to help me out here. Let me just stop for a moment. I can't get it. When you just repeat a word over and over, often you do it with prayer beads. What is that called?
Japa.
Japa. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just couldn't think of the word. So Master said to us, if the greatest japa, the greatest, it's not quite, it is an affirmation of sorts, but to just repeat God, Christ, Guru, God, Christ, Guru. And I don't know if you own a mala yet, and particularly a Kriya mala for those who are on your way. But the malas are, because we do this technique that you'll learn in rounds of 12 breaths. So every 12th bead, there's something special. So you'll know that you've hit what we eventually call one round of Kriya. But if you don't have that, and I don't know what access you have to it, you can get Kriya malas, if not in Australia. There's a man in Pune who makes them, a Kriya bond, and I can send Nara and Kalamali his contact information, but they may. Yeah, I'll send it. And you can get a Kriya mala. I highly recommend it. There is a way of doing Kriya with your fingers. I'll share that with you. Some people love that. My mala has been with me almost from day one. It's been blessed over and over by great saints. It's been in the Ganges 20 times. It's been every sacred place with me in Israel and Italy. And I just love that. Of course, so have my hands. So if you use your fingers, fine. But I would say just chanting God, Christ, Guru will be a wonder. This is what Master himself recommended. So let me say that. You know, Master has written in Scientific Healing Affirmations so many beautiful affirmations. If you actually wanted one, let me again, and Swamiji, of course, has written affirmations for self-healing that we do every week. I think that's the name of the book. Again, I'm just blogging right now. We read one every Sunday, but those are around, and you could find the one like on wisdom or joy. Any one of them are great affirmations, but I think God, Christ, Guru is much more specific to Kriya. Yeah. And I will send this man's name and contact information, and you can find his stuff online. When I was in India, I just bought as gifts a couple of malas from him, but I can't remember his name right now. So I'll get it for you.
That's lovely. We will add that to our website.
Yeah.
So this is another great question about, this is from Alexandra in New Zealand. And so she's near Kavita, but not like right next door or anything. But so she's asking, could you please talk about your favorite way to balance the different techniques within a meditation, including Kriya? Because as a new Kriya-ban, you're learning how to, fit them all in.
This is important for everybody. And then I'll say, whenever you get Kriya at the very beginning, you probably add 15 minutes, about 15 minutes to what you need to do. Now you're all in different places and I don't know where that is. So I want to be very thoughtful about how I answer this. But every technique that Yogananda brought for us, which Swamiji then shared with us, but these are all through Yogananda, is deeply, deeply meaningful on our way to Kriya and once we're practicing Kriya. And I know some years ago, I think the first year of the pandemic, Sai Ganesh and myself put together a course. It went for 12 weeks. We reviewed every technique and we showed why it was important to the practice of Kriya. So obviously way too much to talk about here, but suffice it to say, starting with energization, which is, I think, the first. Well, you may learn, I don't know how you're doing this all in Australia, but you probably learn energization and Hong Sa. Hong Sa probably first. Hong Sa, which is a rather simple, but deceptively simple, because everything starts bringing us into this place where our spine, our astral spine, not our anatomical spine, but the astral spine, which is deep within at the very core of our being, because it was the first thing that was manifested, energy being manifested in physical form, how we all come into this world. First, the astral spine, and then around that, this body, interestingly, okay? So again, another talk, which is a wonderful thing to contemplate, but not now. So what we usually teach and what I think is good, because it is not just good, but probably essential to do all of the techniques. But many of us don't have time to do every technique every day. So I would say sit, I would say pray, because we have to say to God, I'm here and I really need you to be right with me, because we can't do any of this without the Guru, none of it. Our own energy will not take us anywhere. So we do these invocations to the Guru. We do it through our prayers. We do it through a few chants. And even that Om Namo Bhagavate, we don't call it one of the invocations to the Gurus, but of course it is. We're calling on Krishna. So that's pretty wonderful. So we pray, and then if we can chant just a little, even if we're listening to it through a YouTube or through a recording, because Yogananda said to us, chanting is half the battle. You can chant for just 3 minutes. Make this all work for you. But I'm saying to you each day, sit, make sure you have an altar in front of you, however small it has to be. When I first started, it was a tiny little triangular piece of wood in the corner of the one room I lived in. But on that altar, there would be a picture of some manifestation of the divine. I assume that you're all interested in Yogananda and this line of gurus. That's what I think. Get however big of a representation of our gurus that you can, because they're there to help you, whether you have Kriya or not. That's what they want for you. They want your freedom. They want your liberation. So put them there, and then put everything else that speaks to your heart. A special stone or shell that you found at the beach, a flower that you've dropped, whatever it is. Then you sit, you pray, you chant a little, you practice a little Hang Sa, which will take you into a state of deeper peace. By the way, this is all after you've energized. And energization is something we should do every day, at least once a day. If you don't get to it twice a day, okay, but at least once a day. Praying every time we sit, chanting at least once a day, Hang Sa for at least a couple of minutes each time we sit. It will take us to that place. And then again, depending on where you are with your techniques, again, I don't know who's been taught Mahamudra. Mahamudra can be done even 30 minutes before all of this. We do it to magnetize the spine, and it will stay with us. So even if you do it before you energize, it's fine. If you haven't, I'm trying to do this and I'm getting out of order here. But when you first sit, you would do it before you pray, before you chant, before you do Hang Sa. After that, I know somebody who has Kriya asked me, so I will say after Hang Sa, I tell people, please try and do the Om technique. Please try and do it at least 3 or 4 times a week. You may not be able to do it every day, but try. And you can do that wherever in this order after Hang Sa that you want. You can bring it in. You could do a little bit of Om technique before your Kriya or after your Kriya. And you'll find you come up, whether you've had Kriya or not, find what suits you, find what it is that gives you the greatest ability to sit. That's what I would say for now. It's very complicated to just talk about this online because you're all at such different places. But whatever it is, after I've been practicing Kriya for 30-some years, I decided to start doing my Kriya first. Energize, Mahamudra, pray, chant, right into Kriya. That's not how we teach. We teach Hang Sa first. But because I heard Swamiji say one time, the master told him that if you do Kriya first, you'll go deeper and you'll be able to do more. I tried it right away after listening to that talk. And lo and behold, I loved it. It was better for me. I've done it that way ever since. We have to make it work for us. Most important thing. Yes, we need to do these techniques because an avatar himself, I'm aware we're 1 minute over. I'll just finish this sentence. I'm sorry. An avatar himself came and found every one of us who's here and said to us, these are the techniques I've brought for you. How could we ignore that? Why would we ignore that? Somebody in class the other day, now I know the person and I answered in a very particular way because of who I know him to be, but we were talking, it was a class in Raja Yoga on affirmations. I wasn't teaching, but I was in the room. So he asked this question, I'd like to make up my own affirmations. Can I do that? And the person who was teaching said, sure, you can do that. But that didn't sit well with me. I was trying to be very quiet and not interrupt the class. But I had to say, I'd just like to ask this question and you meditate on it. Why would you want to make your own affirmations right now? Somebody pretty new on the path, when we have so many affirmations from 2 realized masters who have spiritualized them. So they're meant magnetically to draw us here. Why would you, who are brand new on the path, want to be doing your own? So we have been given these techniques, and Master said, I brought these just for you. So I'm sorry to, I forget her name now, who asked this question from New Zealand. If I didn't answer your question completely, please email me, shanti@anandapaloalto.org, and I would be happy to answer it very directly for you. I want to, but I know we have to stop now. I have to hand it back to Kalamali and Nar, because it's not fair to all of you to keep you here. So
we could stay for hours, Shanti,
we could.
And that's just a beautiful affirmation for you coming. Really, it just
we will have time to do hours of being together and
being together. We'll put a few things out to be able to share the time that you're with us, Shanti. So looking forward to that. And the questions.
Save all of your questions for those of you who are coming, or even if, I don't know if there's times where any of this will be live streamed or shared on Zoom, but whatever. Questions are a beautiful way to dive deep on the path.
Yeah. And we'll spend lots of time doing that with our excursions and time together. So
but we've saved all your questions, and we'll answer some of them now in the WhatsApp group, and then when Lakshmi does her satsang, we can bring them in again as well. So thank you for writing them.
And lots around motivation, and so I think but Shanti, should we just send out 3 Oms and share this full time together?
Why don't you do that though? I think everybody should be muted, and I'm going to mute myself too.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, Shanti. Thanks everyone for being a part of this today, and all those watching later on the recording.
Such beautiful.
So blessed to share
energy
together.
Yeah. And we'll see you.
I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Okay. Bye, everybody.